Hey guys, what's up? My name is William.
I'm Ahmed.
And I'm Widchard. And our topic is music and media. We will be discussing on how music and media came to empower and unite the African American race.
I will be talking about how the leaders of the civil rights movement used the media to spread their views and show the violent acts committed by the racist whites of the South.
I will be talking about how media is very important during the civil rights movement. It could and did change the outcome of some events, and it united African Americans to convey the message of oppression during segregation.
I will be talking about the different spirituals that African Americans created. I will also be talking about how these different spirituals help empower and bring together African Americans.
Amin was a black teenager who was murdered by whites while visiting family in Mississippi. The murderers were not ever convicted, even though they had murdered Ahmed. They confessed to the murder a few years after the trial. Emmett Till's mother would not let them get away though. She sent a photograph of Emmett's mutilated body to the press. Although it did not reach mainstream media, the gruesome photo caused many complacent blacks to join the movement and actively support civil rights. The murder of Emmett Till was not mainstream media, but the Montgomery bus boycott was. This was because of the massive scale of the boycott and also because of the retaliation of the opponents of the boycott. While the boycotters remained nonviolent, their opponents attacked them. King's house was bombed. The police also arrested him and other boycotters. Nonetheless, there was the 90% participation in the boycott. Very few blacks took the buses. Because of this, the Montgomery bus boycott gained both local and national attention, raising a lot of support for the boycott and the civil rights movement as a whole. In the end, the boycott lasted 1 year and the boycotters succeeded in their attempt. Attention by the media was instrumental to the civil rights movement's success. Without media coverage, nobody would have seen the problems blacks faced. The blacks would not have been able to raise any support. The blacks had no political power. They couldn't just get elected and change it themselves. Without the media, they did not have any say in the government. The media gave them a voice. That voice was loud and demanding for change. Without that voice, that change would not have come. The success of the civil rights movement was due to the media because the media empowered the blacks and gave them a chance to bring change to their government.
Something else that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. supported was the march from Selma to Montgomery. It was a long and dangerous march. During the march was an appalling event named Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday was during the first march on March 7th. 600 civil rights marchers gathered at Brown Chapel when suddenly they were attacked by state and local police with billy clubs and tear gas. This and the rest of the march was broadcast to the whole wide world. This march gained so much attention that it caused the U.S. Congress to quickly enact the legislation that gave the right to vote to all Americans. The progress that came from this single event restored the hopes to the African Americans. People believe that change can be made in America, to shape America into the land that it was designed to be. Another important person during the civil rights movement was the president, Mr. Lyndon Johnson. He is a very nice person. Out of all the presidents in the United States, Johnson was the most effective at reducing poverty. An act that President Johnson passed was the Public Broadcasting Act. This act made public television easily accessible to the society. This made media coverage of events more effective because it reaches more people. It led to the success of the events we have listed so far.
African Americans had a lot of influence on the music industry. From call and response to rap, blacks have been able to band together with the use of music. During the civil rights movement, blacks had to stay strong as a race in order to stop the beast known as segregation. While most people know how African Americans either protested militantly or peacefully, what most people don't know is that music not only helped blacks stay empowered and together during the civil rights movement, but also during slavery and after slavery. To give a background, the first generation of African Americans, as well as slaves that were imported from Africa, were responsible for making the music known as spirituals or call and response. Although it is not known what exact year spirituals were made, we do know that it was sometime around the 1700s. Slave masters would not let slaves play or sing any music that came from their homeland. However, slave owners that were Christians made their slaves go to church, pray, and even sing the old hymns that white owners had in their church, thus making the black slaves forget about their homeland and adapt to the slave life. Although blacks were very reluctant to do this and did not want anything to do with Christianity, especially the New Testament, they realized to a certain extent Jesus felt what they were feeling at that moment in their lives, and many slaves were led to Christianity because of this. They would take old hymns like Amazing Grace and fuse them with their rhythms that came from their homeland in Africa to make spirituals. Now, you've probably heard my example and thought, you didn't say anything about the Civil Rights Movement. What does this have to do with it? Well, this song, We Shall Overcome, is how we connect the Civil Rights Movement with music, spirituals, and the unification of African Americans to fight segregation. This song was frequently sung in churches. It is based on African American hymns and spirituals as well. We Shall Overcome was first used as a protest song in Charleston, South Carolina in 1945. Where black tobacco workers held a strike. It quickly became a hit, as throughout the entire Civil Rights Movement, blacks were singing this song despite whatever they were doing. Even in the face of death, blacks sang this song. Now, despite where any black person in the States were, when this song was sung in the time period, they would stop whatever they were doing and would sing it. They felt like they were part of their race and part of the black family. Finally, when the Civil Rights Movement was over and Lyndon B. Johnson ended his speech about fighting for all rights with the words, "We shall overcome," African Americans finally felt like they had a true home and family in America. In conclusion, no matter whether it takes a death, a changing of a law, or even a song, there is always something that unified African Americans, whether it be as late as the Civil War or as early as slavery.
In conclusion, music and media had a profound effect during the Civil Rights Movement.
The blacks could not have been unified without their use of spirituals and music in general.
And could not have had a voice without the media.
That concludes our TED Talk. Thanks for listening.
About how these different spirituals help empower and bring together African Americans. Empower and bring together African Americans.
My name is William.
I'm Ahmed.
And I'm Widchard. And our topic is music and media.